Hello everyone, welcome to Nolly Learning Center. Today we are going to solve a biology paper 2 of October-November 2024 variant 2-3. Let us start with solving the paper. Let us read the first question which says, what is the description of excretion? So we very well know that excretion is the removal of waste toxic products from the body. So according to that, the most appropriate answer for this will be C. That is removal of waste products of metabolism. Let us move on to the next question. It says the scientific name for a domestic horse is Equus caballus. Which row shows the two parts of the name using the binomial system? So here we very well know that always in the binomial system, the first name is the genus name and the second name is the species name. So in that case, the most appropriate option for this question will be option D, which is Equus will be the genus and caballus will be the species. Let us move on to the question 3. The question says the diagram shows a type of plant cell. Where does this type of cell come from? So when we see this type of cell, it has a large vacuole, cell wall, cytoplasm and nucleus. So when the cell has a larger vacuole means it has more surface area or more area for volume of water to be taken in. So that's why the answer for this will be A, that is a root. Let us move to the next question, that is question 4. What is the formula for calculating magnification? So when I write the formula for magnification, magnification is image upon actual. So for that, the appropriate answer will be option C. Now let us go for question number 5. The question says the diagram represents a substance moving across a cell membrane using energy from respiration. Now energy will be used when the particle is moving from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. And we very well know that the particles move from a lower concentration to higher concentration in active transport and by using energy. Let us move to the next question. The question says which food testing reagent shows a positive result when it turns from blue to purple. Now we very well know that the reagent that turns from blue to purple is the burette solution. So the answer will be burette, and burette solution is used for testing of proteins. Let us move to the next question. Question 7th. It says what are the characteristics of an enzyme? Let us read the conditions given. The active site is the same shape as the substrate. We all know that the active site has a complementary shape to the substrate. So the answer will be no. Secondly, it is used up during the reaction. No, enzymes are not used up during the reaction. They can be used over and over again because the enzyme does not change. So the answer will be no. And it is made up of a protein. We know that all enzymes are proteins. So the answer for that will be yes. So the most appropriate option for this question will be A. Let us move on to question 8. It says an enzyme in potato cells causes oxygen to be produced from the breakdown of hydrogen peroxide. Cubes of potato tissues were placed in a hydrogen peroxide solution at different temperatures. The number of bubbles of oxygen released per minute was counted at each temperature, and the table shows the result. The result suggests the optimum temperature for the enzyme is between which two values. So let us analyze. I can see that the maximum number of bubbles are coming out at 15 degrees Celsius and the least is at 55 degrees Celsius. So 55 can never be the optimum temperature for the enzyme because here the enzyme is showing the least activity and maybe the enzyme has denatured due to the high temperature. So that's why the most appropriate range in which it is showing the best activity is from 15 to 35 because after that the number of oxygen bubbles per minute is decreasing. So for that the most appropriate answer will be A. Let us move on to the next question. Which molecules contain nitrogen? Now, let us see the basic elements in each of these given substances. So the basic elements in amino acids which makes the proteins is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. So the appropriate answer for this will be amino acids. Then too, for fats, the main elements are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Even for glucose, it is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And starch also being a carbohydrate, it is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Now let us move on to question number 10. The photomicrograph shows the lower surface of a leaf. Which part of the leaf is labeled X? So when I talk about the part labeled X, it is basically the guard cells. It won't be the stomata because stomata is this opening of the cell. So that's why the answer for this will be guard cell. Let us move on to the next question. Which row shows the correct enzyme and its substrate and the site of enzyme action in the alimentary canal? So let us read the option and eliminate the inappropriate options. A. The enzyme is amylase. The substrate for that is starch. That is true. But the site of enzyme action is not colon. Amylase basically works in the mouth to break down the starch. Let us go for the second option. Lipase is the enzyme. Substrate is not the fatty acid because the substrate for lipase is lipids. Let us move on to the third option. Maltase will break down maltose. That is true. And in the ileum epithelium, that is also true. So that's why the option C will be the answer for this question. Let us move on to question 12. A student set up the experiment shown in the diagram on a hot and dry day. The air bubble moved towards the leafy shoot by 30 mm in 1 hour. The student was asked to predict and explain the results that would have been obtained on a hot and humid day. So first of all, we very well know that rate of transpiration is inversely proportional to humidity. So it is very clear that on a humid day, the rate of transpiration will be lesser. So the distance moved by the drop will be lesser. And that's why the answer for this option will be option B. That the drop moves lesser distance and the water evaporates more slowly in humid air. Let us move on to the next question. Which statement describes the process of translocation? Translocation is the bidirectional movement of sucrose and amino acids in the phloem. So let us read the options. The movement of sucrose and amino acids in the xylem. No, it moves in the phloem. Second option. The movement of sucrose and water. Water doesn't move in the phloem. Third option. The movement of sucrose and amino acids in the phloem from source to sink. And that is the appropriate option for this question. Let us move to the next question. The diagram shows the human heart. Where are the semilunar valves present? So semilunar valves will be present at the start of the pulmonary artery and at the start of the aorta. So in that case, W and X are the semilunar valves. And that's why the appropriate option for this question will be A. Let us move on to the next question. Which component of the blood transports hormones? Now we know that when I talk about the blood, it comprises of two parts, which is the plasma and the cells. Now in that, the plasma carries the hormones, salts, minerals, urea. So that's why the answer for this question will be A. Whereas RBCs, WBCs and platelets are the cells. Let us move on to question number 16. During the process of vaccination, what stimulates an immune response? Now we very well know that during vaccinations, the dead or weakened pathogen is injected in our body and the lymphocytes work upon it producing the antibodies, and these antibodies have a complementary shape to the antigen on the pathogen. So the one that stimulates an immune response will be the antigen on the pathogen. Let us move on to question number 17, which says muscles are responsible for ventilation of the lungs during breathing. Which row describes the action during the inspiration of air? We very well know that during inspiration, the diaphragm contracts and the external intercostal muscle goes with the diaphragm. So if the diaphragm contracts, the external intercostal muscle will also contract, whereas the internal intercostal muscle will relax, as external intercostal muscle and internal intercostal muscles are antagonists to each other. So that's why the appropriate option for this question will be A. Let us move on to the next question. Which molecule is a product of anaerobic respiration in yeast? So when we talk about the anaerobic respiration in yeast, in that glucose directly gives out ethanol, that is C2H5OH, two molecules of it, with two molecules of carbon dioxide in the presence of yeast. So the right option for this question will be A, C2H5OH, which is ethanol. Let us go on to the next question. In a kidney, nephron, which substances are filtered out of the blood in the glomerulus? Now we very well know that the substances that filter out of the glomerulus are smaller substances. Macromolecules do not filter. So in that case, when we read option A, proteins is eliminated because protein is a macromolecule. Similarly for B. Whereas for C, it is glucose, ions, urea and water. Now, glucose also gets filtered and goes out of the glomerulus, but it is reabsorbed later. So in that case, the option for this will be C, because glucose also gets filtered out of the glomerulus. Moving on to the next question. How many types of cone cells are there in human eye? So when we talk about the human eye contains three types of cone cells, which is red, green and blue. Cone cells are basically the cells which help us viewing colors. So that's why the option for this will be C. Let us move on to question number 21. It says the diagram shows a plant shoot growing towards the light. Which row describes where oxygen is produced and which side of the shoot has lowest concentration of oxygen? So in that case, first of all, oxygen is produced in the shoot tip. So for that, the answer will be K, where oxygen is produced. So option C and D are eliminated. Now we need to say where the oxygen concentration will be the lowest. So oxygen always moves away from the light. So it will move towards J and the least concentration will be in L. So that's why the option for this question will be B. Let us move on to the next question. Which statement about antibiotics is correct? So let us read the options. Antibiotics are produced by memory cells. That's not true. It is produced by lymphocytes. Next, antibiotics are used to treat rickets. Now, rickets is not treated by antibodies as rickets is due to vitamin D deficiency. Antibiotics are used to treat viral infections. No, antibiotics are used to treat bacterial infections. So, the answer for this will be D, which is antibiotics should be used only when essential, or else we know that antibiotics may develop antibiotic resistance. Let us start with question number 23. It says the diagram shows a strawberry plant, which label part of the plant can only be produced by asexual reproduction. So we can see in this diagram that part A, B and C are coming out from a seed, growing out of a seed, which is flower, the fruit and the leaves. Whereas the D I can see is due to asexual reproduction, that is vegetative propagation. That's why the answer for this will be D. Let us go to question number 24. Which part of a flower can contain a pollen tube? So the pollen tube is present in the style, because after pollination the pollen grain generates a pollen tube which goes all the way through the style towards the ovary. So the answer for this is style. Let us move on to question number 25. So to avoid extinction of rare plant species, a botanical garden keeps a collection of seed known as a seed bank. Which conditions will prevent these seeds germinating while they are in storage? So when we talk about seed germination, we know there are three important factors required for seed germination, which is water, oxygen, and appropriate temperature, which is the optimum temperature. So high humidity means more amount of water. That will enhance the germination. So this won't be the answer. Same goes with high level of oxygen, which won't be preventing, which will be enhancing the seed germination. Light intensity has no effect on germination of seed. That's why the right answer will be lower temperature. Let us move on to question number 26. The graph shows the change to the thickness of the lining of the uterus during the menstrual cycle. Which hormone is responsible for the change to the thickness of the lining of the uterus shown between day 5 to day 16? So in that case, we very well know that the changes to the uterus lining during the day 5 to day 16, that is, the thickness of the uterus lining increases, and that is done by the estrogen, which repairs the uterus lining after it has broken down during the 1st to 5th day. So that's why the answer for this will be C. Next question. Which hormone concentrations are high during pregnancy? So for that, let us see the options. LH is the hormone which causes ovulation. So it has no function in pregnancy. Estrogen will be high because it will be maintaining the lining of the uterus and repairing it. So estrogen will be required, and progesterone is the hormone which is said to be maintaining the pregnancy. So that's why the option C is correct for this. Let us go on to question 28. By which route would HIV infection not be transmissible? Now we know that HIV infection is due to body fluids coming in contact with the infected person. So for that, answer will be B, that is saliva. Let's move on to question number 29. Which description of human gamete is correct? Now when I talk about the human gamete, so we very well know that gametes are always haploid. That is, they contain a single set of chromosome, and for humans the single set of chromosome comprises of 23 chromosomes. So that's why the answer for this will be that it's a haploid cell with 23 chromosomes. Let us move on to question number 30. Which statements about meiosis are correct? So first of all, let us understand meiosis. Meiosis is called as reductional division. Means it will halve the number of chromosomes from the parent cell. So in that case, it does not produce genetically identical cells. So for that, the answer will be no. So option A and B eliminated. Involved in production of gametes, that is true because meiosis always results in formation of haploid cells. So that's why the answer for this will be C. Let us move on to question number 31. It says a female parent who is heterozygous for red-green color blindness has a female child with a red-green colorblind male parent. What is the chance of the female child being colorblind? So let us analyze this. First of all, the female is heterozygous and red-green color blindness is an X-linked recessive disorder. So in this case, the female will have the genotype that is X capital B, X small b. Whereas the male is colorblind. So the possibility for the male will be X small by. Now, when we talk about the male being colorblind and the female being heterozygous, let us do a cross for that. So the results obtained will be something like this. In this case, we can see that 50% of the female can be colorblind, which is X small b, X small b. So that's why the answer for this will be C, that there is a 50% chance of the female child being colorblind. Let us move on to question number 32. A pure breeding plant with smooth stems was crossed with a heterozygous plant with hairy stems. What will be the ratio of hairy to smooth stems in the resulting plants? Now, if it's a pure breeding plant, means it's homozygous. So, and having a smooth stem means the smooth stem is a recessive trait. So in that case, let us say smooth stems will be small h and heterozygous means it will be a capital H small h. So let us see the cross and see what results we get. In this case, the results we will obtain will be something like this. We will get 50% of the plants to be hairy and 50% of the plants to have smooth stems. So that's why the answer for this will be A, that is 1:1. Let us move on to the next question. Which row shows the adaptive feature of a xerophyte? Now when I talk about a xerophyte, it is basically the plants which can survive in harsh, hot conditions, which is basically I can say the desert conditions. So in that case, let us see the options. Obviously, the plants that live in desert conditions will require deep roots. So option C and D are eliminated. Leaves with small surface area. Yes, that will be true because lesser the surface area, lesser will be the transpiration. So that's why the appropriate answer for this can be A. Next question. The diagram shows a marine food web. At which trophic level is the cod found? So when I talk about the cod, first of all, This is the producer. Zooplankton will be the primary consumer. The cod will be the secondary consumer. Whereas if I go by the second way, shrimp is the secondary consumer and cod will be the tertiary consumer. So the cod is feeding at two trophic levels, that is the secondary consumer as well as the tertiary consumer. So the answer for this will be B. Let us move on to the next question. The diagram shows part of a carbon cycle. Which labeled arrow would have the balanced chemical equation, that is 6CO2 plus 6H2O giving C6H12O6 and 6O2, which is the equation for photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is carbon dioxide coming from the air into the plant. So that's why the answer for this will be B. Next question. Which statement explains why there is a lag phase in the population graph? So let us read the options. The buildup of waste products limits the population growth. No, that wouldn't be the appropriate option. Low population size limits the birth rate. That's why the lag phase is present in the graph. So that's why the answer will be B. Let's move on to the question number 37. The flowchart describes the process of eutrophication, and they are asking what should be at step X and Y in the flowchart. So step X in that case will be increased nitrate concentration in the water body, because that is the nutrient for the algae to grow. So that's why option A and option C will be eliminated. Step Y is after increased decomposition after the death of producers. So that will cause a decrease in the BOD, that is decrease in the oxygen. So that's why decrease in dissolved oxygen concentration will be the answer, and the appropriate answer for this will be B. So let us move on to question number 38. How can fish stocks be conserved? Let us read the options. Closed seasons, that can be true. So that's why the answer for this will be closed seasons. Because decreased mesh size or increased quotas or reduction in protected areas will not help to conserve the fish species. Let us move on to question number 39. Penicillin is produced in a fermenter by growing the fungus Penicillium. The graph shows how the mass of the living Penicillium fungus and the concentration of penicillin change over time. When is the best time to collect the penicillin? So we can see that the label for this graph on this side is the concentration of penicillin. And we can see that the concentration of penicillin is increasing during this time. And this will be the best time to collect the penicillin, which is between 3 and 4. So that's why the answer for this will be C, which is 3.5 days. Going on to the last question for this paper. Which enzymes are required to produce human proteins using genetic modification? So first of all, we know that the enzyme which will be required to cut the bacteria will be restriction enzymes. So option A and B are eliminated. To form a recombinant plasmid, we need DNA ligase, which is the molecular glue. And again, to isolate the DNA, making up the human gene, that is extracting the human gene from the DNA, will also be done by the restriction enzymes. So that's why the answer for this will be C. I hope this was helpful and informative for you all. Thank you.